All right, welcome back to the series, guys. And in this particular video, we are going to be looking at ignoring files. All right, what are ignored files? First, ignored files are files you do not want Git to track. So these files will not be committed and pushed to your repository. So these are files that remain in your local folder or your local machine while you are working with Git. So when using Git, the version control system, you can specify certain files to be ignored by Git. These ignored files are typically configuration files, built-in artifacts. They could be swap files, authentications, package managers, and system files, as well as temporary files that are intended or not intended, rather, to be tracked or committed to the repositories. So such files, they will not be tracked by Git. So these are examples of such ignore files. Okay, we are going to look at them one after the other. First in the list, there you have operating system files. DS store is an operating system file. This is a file specific to a particular operating system. So such files, you keep them in the DS store folder where they will not be tracked. Then you have VS Code folder. It's an IDE or text editor specific files that store local settings or configurations. So any file that are kept in the .vs code folder will not be tracked by Git. Then you have the authentication.js as well as the node modules. These are files and directories related to package managers that track dependencies. So you also have catch files. Models include log and tmp files. So these files are often generated during runtime of a program or during program development time. So such files are not tracked. You have notes files to do notes folder and to do file to do .md, which under the note folder. Such files as well are not tracked by Git. So you have other files such as config.ini.env. These are credentials and sensitive files such as password, API keys, or database credentials. These files will not be tracked by Git, as well as Git .sml, which is an example of a configuration file, which is a project specific configuration. Then you have swap files, which has the extension .swap. Such files, they are backup files created by text editors or other editors, and such files are not going to be tracked by Git. So what we are going to do right away, we are going to go ahead and copy these files. So I'll just go ahead and copy these files. Then I'll move over to our code editor, VS Code, and once I get here, I'll go over to create our .git ignore file. So I'll come over here. I'll create my .git ignore file. So I'll hit enter, and here is it. So I'll go ahead. So by the way, if you are still asking how I got here, this is just VS Code terminal, and I'll leave a link in the description how you can download and install your VS Code. So you can see there is a change here. This file I just created .git ignore is showing U. So what does this U mean? It stands for uncommitted files. All right, sometimes you could see some changes such as M, which is modified, A added, and so on and so forth. We're going to talk about this as we progress in the series. So what I'll need to do, I'll come here and paste the files I committed. All right, so once they are pasted, I'll just come here to my terminal. Once again, if you don't know how we got here, this is it. You have terminal here. You could come here, new terminal, you create a new terminal. So that is how we got here. So I'll come down here. I'll add the changes I have made by doing git add dot. By the way, when I say dot, it's going to add every file that have been modified in the project. But if I use a specific file name, such as maybe index.html.gitignore, is going to add that particular file. But either way, the git add dot or period is the easiest or the easier way for me to add the files. So I'll do dot or period. So it's going to add that. Then I'll do git commit. Then -m, I'll add my commit message. They added .gitignore files. .gitignore files. So I'll commit that changes with that commit message. So you can see one file changed, 0 insertions, 0 deletions, and so on. So yes, I've created the gitignore file. As you saw earlier, in this source control, there was a dot here which indicated that we have not committed our file. So after we entered our commit message, you can see that that dot have disappeared. So this is to save. I'll just go ahead. You could come over here to save this file by clicking save or save all. You could also go ahead and use your keyboard. What you need to do, you are using two keys. You hold your control, you tap K and S. So it's going to save that on your keyboard. So yeah, you can see this. There is a change here which shows modified. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let me just go ahead and add that. So git commit -m updated git ignore updated.git ignore. Yep. So hit enter. All right. So you can see, yes, that has disappeared. So after doing all of this, so how do we let's create some ignore files. All right, since we already created the .gitignore file. So what I'll need to do, I'll come here, git ignore, and I'll create first let me create a node folder. All right, because this is included, we have the node folder here. So let me create that and notes. So I'll hit enter. Inside the notes folder, you're going to see what will happen right away. So inside the note folder, I'll create a file, and I'll call that file my notes.md. So after that, if I hit enter, you can see a node file is created here. But you can see it's blurred, right? It's blurred because it has been, because of this extension .md file extension, this file has been blurred out for that reason. So again, let me create another file under the node folder. I'll call it let me create another file under the node folder, my write.md. Again, you can see that both of them are blurred out because of the extension. All right, because of the .md extension. So those files are blurred out. So even if I go ahead and put anything inside there, let me say this is my node file. my node file. That file is not correct. My node file, and I come here and save that change. Okay, I'm coming. Just a second. I'll go ahead and save that change. All right. But if you notice that there is no if you look at source control, there is nothing that indicated that any change was made here. And how do I prove that? Let me prove that to you, that because git ignore file does not track such file. They do not keep track of such file. If I come here and do git status, you can see nothing to commit, what working tree clean. All right. So because these files are ignore files, add them to the .git ignore file, they will not be tracked by Git, and nothing is going to, there will be no modification in the source control. All right. I believe you understand that. Let me also add another folder. I could come here and add, sorry. Let me add another folder, the cache folder. Okay. So, and again, if you come here, our git ignore files, you see that the cache folder is part of the folders here, the directories we want to ignore by Git. So inside that, I'm going to create a file, and I'll call it file.swap. All right, a swap file. So again, I could write whatever my first swap file. I could go ahead and save this, but again, you see that there is nothing. And if I come back, there is nothing to, if I save the, okay, let us save first. Control K plus X. Okay, we've saved that. And if I come here again and do git status, I hit enter, you can see that working tree, nothing to commit. Why? Because these files, all of them, and you can see the color, they are faint because they are not tracked by Git. All right, these files are not tracked by Git. So these are ignore files. So why we are looking at this in this series, these ignored files, is because when you are starting your project, you could have files, they could be directories you don't want Git to track. So what you need to do is to create a .git ignore file and keep those files and directories you don't want to be tracked by Git. You keep them in that .git ignore file, and when you create any extension that relates to that,